Hello and welcome to the 2024 online NSD with Venetia Ramsey from Scrapworks. So today we're going to tackle a couple of techniques. I'm going to be working mainly with the Distress watercolor pencils. So you're going to need some die cuts. Okay, so you can either have these Sizzix ones or something that you cut out on your cameo or items that you've punched out. You're going to need like a background kind of stamp, and then I chose a few stamps where I could get some of the sentiments out of. So you can use the same one, or chose 3 different sentiments for my cards. You will need a stencil, preferably something like this that has quite a lot of open spaces, a piece of acetate for the smooshing technique, okay, just a piece of clean acetate. You're going to need some Distress Oxide inks. I'm working with Lost Shadow and Black Soot, so very light colors. Doesn't necessarily have to be these colors, but it's just going to form a very light background, so you don't want that to dominate your cards. And then I'm going to be working with Jet Black Archival ink and the Arranger dyeing pad called Cool Graphite. You could work with Hickory Smoke as well. You just need something that's very light. So Hickory Smoke from the Distress line would also work. You're going to need a blending tool. I'm going to work with a domed foam, a gel pen to go around the edges, and then a stencil brush to be able to stencil through the stencil. You want a very light application. Okay, and then some foam squares. You need some repositional glue. I'm going to use a glue that dries tacky so that I can just move it around where I want to. And then I'll be using the Tombow glue to attach my cards that I make the bases to the actual card. Right? You will need, for today's class, I've already made one card. So we're going to make 3 different cards, 3 of each in total. So you'll end up having 9 cards in total. You don't have to make that many. You can make 1 of each, or you can make 2 of each. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so you need, my card bases measure 11 by 16. I work on that, and then I trim them down to fit onto a card that measures 10 by 15. So I will trim these card bases down to 9.5 by 14.5, and then I will put them onto a card that I've made myself. This I've just measured 20 centimeters across, 15 centimeters down, scored down the middle, and created my own little card base. Right, so that's more or less what you're going to need. Optional would be a stamp platform. I think that comes in very handy when we stamp the sentiments, so we can get them in exactly the right place. So you need, and then some repositional tape. Okay, some low tack tape. Just be able to hold your die cuts in place when we color them in. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to be working mainly with the watercolor pencils. I do have where I've already sharpened some of them and put the shavings in here. I'm waiting for this to use all of this up before I do all the pencils, because I've bought the other 3 sets that came, because there's 6 sets, and I just want to get them in the right order. So I'll wait till this is all used up before I start to add more, and that means that I'm working between what's in here and what's on my pencil. Okay, I'll show you how we do that. You will also need a water brush. If you don't have one of these, then just get yourself some watercolor brushes. If not, just round paint brushes, a small, medium, and medium to large brush, and then you will need water to spritz. You need some of that, and then I also have water in a jar that I close up, okay, that I will also then dip the pencils into to use like that. Okay, I just keep it in a little purity bottle on my table, because that way I don't knock it over. Right, I will also be working on, I'm working on my glass media mat. You can work on anything where you are able to get it messy and make it easy for cleanup. Right, I'm just going to put my inks off to the side because we will be working with that first. So the first thing I do when making my cards is I take my dies and I will spend an afternoon or an evening and just die cut. This is not everything. This is just some of the stuff that I've die cut out. And then I will put it in the little piles like that. Keep them in their little piles and how I plan to use them. And like this one, when I die cut it, I can't remember which one. One of them, there we go, that one. This little leaf broke off. This little branch and leaf I pulled too hard. But I will keep it like that and I will just attach it back on my page like that or without it. But I wouldn't throw the whole entire thing away. So I've die cut some of the birds. I've got some labels here, some that I've already started to add ink to, some that I haven't. I've got the different types of labels. So there's rectangular ones, square ones, circle ones, and oval ones. The birds, I've cut out a whole lot of birds. I've chosen which ones I want to work with. I've got some of these flowers. I have some leaves. So you really just need to go through and pick and choose what you want to use on for your cards. I always cut a whole lot of stuff, and then whatever's left over I put into little bags. So if I haven't had an opportunity, I just want to find where the little bags are. I don't know where they are now. But those little cellophane bags that you self-seal, I will then pop all of this into that little bag and then keep that bag with the die cuts. So for example, so I have, these are the labels. Whatever I don't use today, I will put back into the little, my container, my storage container that I use. I will then, you can quickly do that. The bigger stuff I will just put in and keep with my little storage container because I know I'm not going to lose them if I throw them in like that. And then they kind of are all kept together. We only need 2 of those. I'll just leave 2 out. Right. Then I'll just store it in its little bag like that. For the smaller little goodies, I have those tiny little bags, even a tiny little Ziploc bag where I'll put in all the same kind of dies, and then also keep that with the die cut, or you could keep it separately if it becomes too bulky. All right. But I think that if everything is already pre-cut, already stored in a little bag, you are more likely to use it than to actually go pull out your die cutting machine and then sit and cut 1 or 2 items for a card. So I always think that to save time and to actually help with the inspiration process, it's always good to just die cut a whole lot of stuff and have it ready to go. Right. So what we're going to do is we are going to create these 3 cards. Okay, I'm going to do that, and we're going to start by creating all the backgrounds, doing all the coloring, and then start with the assembly. So kind of do the same thing over and over. So we are only going to repeat this process twice, repeat this process twice, repeat this process twice. But I would normally make like this kind of card, I'd make like 6 of, and just have them on hand and have 6 and 6. I think that just helps. And then it makes a nice, you can either then use the cards or give the cards as a gift. All right. So the first thing we're going to start off is with the backgrounds. They are all pretty much the process for the backgrounds is the same. We just need them to be dry before we can work with them. To create the background, I just took a piece of acetate and some Lost Shadow Distress Oxide. Okay. And just squished some on my piece of acetate like that. Spritzed on some water, making sure that all the ink breaks up, so you can then just break up the ink like that. I prefer to use a brush to break it up. Let's use the bigger brush. Okay, we can break it up with a brush. Whatever is excess on the brush, you can make little splatters on your paper. So I'm not using specialized paper, I'm just using plain, normal, smooth cardstock because I know I'm not going to be adding a lot of water. If you feel that you're going to be too heavy-handed with the amount of water that you're going to add to your background, then I would suggest you actually prep it with some clear gesso or work on some mixed media paper or watercolor cardstock. But I know I'm just going to keep the process of adding ink. I'm not going to saturate the paper. I'm just going to add a little bit. So that's more or less, you can see where I've added the ink. I haven't covered it all together, it's just like blotted on there. Right, so we can do the next one. So just take off, remember, just dry your piece of acetate before you squish your ink pad on again. So you could do this with a spray. You could, if you didn't want to squish the ink pad, you could use your spray stain or spray your oxide sprays. Okay, so it's just really the same process. We're just going to add some splatters. Take this, I fold it, I curl it up, and then work from one end to the other and just walk it across and walk it across to get the ink to move. And you can then turn that, buckle it this way, and then walk the ink across. I just want a very light, messy application of ink on the background. Okay, the other thing you want to remember is not to use your nail to get ink off because it will leave an impression on the background. I will do one more with you and then I'm going to speed up the video and do the rest. So we're going to squish on some ink, activate the ink with water, use the brush to break up so that everything is mixed in and has water. Splatter what's on the brush onto your background. Apply the ink again, buckle, start one end and maneuver it across. Okay, and then the other way. You just, like I say, and you don't even have to use the process I'm using it. You could just do your own thing. Come up with your own way of applying the ink. But you just want a very rough kind of application. I don't want it perfectly blended. And I'm aiming to get most of my ink in the middle of my paper. Right, so I'm going to quickly put on some music and speed up the process, and I'll see you in a bit. And there you go, that is the backgrounds, the ink applied for now. So what I'm going to do is put this aside to dry. I'm going to let them air dry for the moment. We can always come back to them at a later stage to add the next step. Okay, so the first card we're going to make together is this one. I have already pulled out all the little goodies that we're going to need for it. So we are only going to make two, but I think if possible, I mean if you've already got everything out, then it would make sense to just, you make a whole lot, you know, so make 6, 10, while you've got it out, all your pencils and all the stuff out, just color everything in. You don't necessarily have to stick to this the colors that I've used here. You could go with a whole lot of different colors. For the sake of speed and ease, I'm just going to stick with the same colors. So for this one, I used the pencils. I used Crackling Campfire, I used Mustard Seed, I used the 2 different greens, Shabby Shutters and Peeled Paint, and then the 2 different browns. I've got Scorched Timber and Walnut Stain, and then I also brought in a little bit of old paper. Yeah, I might bring in a little bit of antique linen, but we'll see. I think that for most part I kept with these colors on this one. So I'm going to leave the reference. Let's see where we can put it so that it doesn't get dirty. Whoops, if I do that, okay. There's no reflection, so you can kind of see it. So if I do splatter something on there, everything's there. So I have the 2 little birds. I've got the 2 little twigs that are going to go there. I've got the leaf that I pushed in behind there. I have the little pieces that I'm going to put the sentiments on, the 2 different size flowers, and then I have this leaf wreath that I want to work with. So we will start by coloring the wreath, and then we'll slowly move on to everything else. So you'll see now why I say it makes sense to just, if you cut a whole lot of these, to just get started with making them. So I know that this, okay, broke off. I can find it, there it is, broke off over here. So I'll just bear that in mind when I'm coloring in. Okay, so what I did is I took the Walnut Stain and I just applied on what I thought were the branches. I tried to avoid getting pencil on my leaf. Right, so you're just going to carry on adding pencil, coloring it in, pencil direct to your paper. On certain places I actually go over twice and put a little bit of pressure just to get some extra ink or paint, pencil coloring to go off onto the background, and then just going to add a little bit there. Then I took my peeled paint and colored in the leaves, not even all together. I'm just applying some pencil just basically to the leaf like that. Some places I probably would have got some of the brown on, but that's also okay. We aren't too worried about that. So just gonna get some pencil on like that. And if I've skipped a spot of the brown, I'm going to add in some of the green like that. Maybe add a little bit of green over here. Okay, and then the same with this one. We're just going to carry on. I'm going to color this one in using the side of your pencil. Just scribble on some ink. Get some color onto that foundation. Okay, and then the green, like that. There we go. Right. Then we're going to need some water. Oops, forgot to add this one. So I'm just going to add a bit of brown here. And then, because I can always stick this piece on separately. Okay, then I'm going to open up my water. I'm going to use this brush, a little round brush. I'm going to dip the brush into the water, take a little bit off, and then just go over wherever there's pencil with the brush. Okay, Right, so that's if you don't have a watercolor brush. If you have one of these, you can just activate the water and the bristles by bending the bristles and rubbing. Go till the water runs clear, and then I'm just going to use that to work that brown in. So wherever I've colored, I'm just going to take the brush over that, activate the ink in the pencil ink, activate that marker, get it to move around to give a watercolor effect. Right. So for now I'm not doing any of the leaves, I'm just aiming for the branch area. You also don't want to add too much water. You want to control the amount of water. Because I'm not working on watercolor cardstock or mixed media paper, I'm working just on normal cardstock. I'm very careful with the amount of water that I am applying. I don't want my paper to pull. I don't want it to get too soggy that it tears. Like I say, if you think you're going to be a bit heavy-handed, it's always a good idea to prep your surface first. So there we go, we've got that first layer of color on, and now we can start to build up that color. I like to do that by working with a medium brush. We're going to dip that in the water, and we're going to work directly from the pencil. If you have these colors, if you've shaved them off and put them into a little inkwell like I've got the others, you can just work directly from there. So otherwise you could do it this way. I find this way very easy, quick and easy to manage. So all I did is put my brush in the water and rub my brush on the tip of the pencil, and now I'm going to go in and just add some extra color, darken it in certain areas, lighten it in others. So you use water to push the color away a bit, and marker, pencil, paint, whatever you want to call it, to add. So you'll keep doing that until you get an effect that you like. And again, I am applying very little water. I am controlling how wet I make my little element. And by going back in this way, I have a little bit more control about where we get ink and with the shading. So I don't want to make it all dark. I want some areas a little bit darker, a little bit more ink than other areas. But I do want to be sure that all the white has been covered. Right, so that looks so far so good. Right, then you can clean off your brush, and we can do the same thing now with the green. So I'm working with peeled paint, Just going to pick up some ink on my brush and then just paint that little bit of extra onto the leaves. So I'm trying to put more of the crayon or the pencil on one half of the leaf and trying to leave the other a little bit light to get the two-tone, the dark part of the leaf and a lighter part, a little bit of the under part. I can see that this part here should actually be brown. It'll look better if it's brown than the green that I've added, so I'm just going to go over that. Back to picking up some of the green. And it really doesn't have to be perfect, because we're going to build things up over it anyway. So like here, it hasn't mixed properly. The color is just saturated in. I can take the brush and just use the brush to push the color around so that it has a bit of a better blend, like that. Again, that one can go off to dry a bit, and we're going to do the same thing with the other one. Right, so I just want to add a little bit of a little bit of a darker brown. So I'm going to take the scorched timber, because we colored those in with walnut stain, and just here and there. So I know I want this to go in more or less. I think we're going to have it in something like that. It's going to go on my card. So here and there, like here, just go in and add a little bit of that darker color. And can just really be very random. I think like that, maybe a little bit over here. We'll do the same with this one. Then it's going to go in more or less like that. I just want that branch to stand out a little bit more. And also, once we've got it on in place, we can also then go in and do add some finishing touches. But for most part, I just want most of the white covered up. And there we go. So now I want to go in and add my last layer with the leaves. I'm going to go in and pick up get quite a thick blend. All right, and then just take the outside of the leaf and add in a little outline. Just pick one side of the leaf to add a little bit of a darker side. Just get that dark layer on. we can go in later and blend. Just use the very tip of the brush and add in just that one side, like that. We'll leave that to do its thing. We'll do the same thing just on one side of the leaf. We're adding a little bit of a darker line. Okay, right, so then you can go in and soften up those lines by just adding some water on your brush and then just going back over and pushing that color back with the brush, just so that that line softens out a bit and you get a leaf that has a light and a dark side. It's not necessarily the right way, but it works for me. You just want to blend out the little harsh line so that it shades from the darker color to the lighter color. So there we go, those are done. For now, they can be put aside to dry. All right, we'll leave those to dry. Then the next step, while we've got the green and the brown out, I think we'll stay with doing the leaves and quickly get all of that out of the way. Right, so for the next step, we're going to do the leaves first. Let me just bring the water back in. So for this one, I took shabby shutters. I worked from the pencil onto the paper and just covered the whole leaf. Just added a layer of shabby shutters. And again, I'm not trying to get full coverage. Here and there, some of the white is going to stick out. That's okay. We just want to get that first layer of paint on. Like that, and then on these two we can go in and add, just on the leaves, go and add shabby shutters. Okay, and then the other thing, if you find it difficult to hold everything in place, another trick that works quite well is to just keep the pieces that you die cut out. I should have shown you this first. You can then just put your item inside there. I've put a bit of low tack tape behind, and then you can just position this right back inside your little goodie and color it in without it having to move around. But I find it easy enough for these ones to hang on to the stem while I paint. The smaller, more finicky ones I will put into their little frame. Okay, so there we go with that. Next up is the, we're going to add the darker of the green. We're going to add some peeled paint. Okay, and this time again, I just want to add paint to 1/2 of the leaf. I'm just aiming to do the bottom and the top there. Again, just leave that to dry a little bit. We'll do the other one. Okay, and then we can do these ones. Clean off your brush and then just go in and work that green back in there, just to get rid of that harsh line. There will be enough water and on your brush to be able to work that ink back. In some cases it may have just absorbed into the paper quite nicely and created its own little effect. So my suggestion is take your pencils. You don't necessarily have to use the Tim Holtz ones. You can use any watercolor pencil and cut out a whole lot of goodies and then just play around and see how the water reacts on your paper and on the little shape that you use, and see what you get. So I'm just going to take some of the green now and color in the stem. Just going to make that nice and dark and push that then into each of the, like that. Leave that over there to dry. We'll do the same with this one. We're just going to pick up some extra, color in the stem so that there's no white. Covering up all the white. And there we go, there's that one. Right, then these ones. Just going to give them a bit more color, a little bit of water. Get rid of that hard line. And there we go. Then I'm going to bring in some crackling campfire. I'm going to pick up some of the pencil. Oops. And I'm going to go in on each of these little dots. What would they be? The berries. And just color them in with the crackling campfire. Right. We can always go back and add another layer. Right, so these two I didn't clean up the ink that was on the mat, so they absorbed the green that was there, but it's not the end of the world. I'm still going to use it. And you can see how nice and dark it's starting to go now that we're starting to add on that second layer. And there we go. So those can go off to dry. So you could sit and have made a whole lot of those now. You can choose, you didn't have to do only the crackling campfire for the berries. You could have made them green, brown, red, yellow, any color you could have done that with. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to color in the bird. To do the bird, I took old paper and I colored directly onto the bird. I'm coloring where I think the bird's breast, you know, the lighter part of the bird's breast would be. So I'm adding quite a bit of pencil to that. Old paper is very light, so I am adding a bit of pressure to the pencil to try and get on quite as much pencil as I can. A good layer of ink. I'm also not just coloring up and down. I am coloring in like a semicircle, following the shape of the bird. And going just a little bit further than halfway. All right. And then I'm going to take the walnut stain and also color in the bird, the top part of the bird. Right, so close to the top of the bird, I'm putting the pencil on quite dark in the top of the tail, and then I'm going to use the side and just apply a light layer of pencil like that. So again, the top part right on the edge I'm making a little bit darker, applying extra of the brown there. Like that. And then using the side of my pencil, just apply a lighter layer like that. I think we can bring this in just a little bit more, like that. Right, then I'm going to take my brush and work in the old paper like that, bring that up to where the brown started and blend that browny color into the old paper. Pull color from the edge, just work it in. Again, getting rid of that hard line that would have been created from adding the pencil directly from the pencil. Leave that aside to dry. Next one. Just work that old paper in. You will see when the old paper starts to blend, you can then take it into the brownie color, and you just want to work it in to blend it, to get rid of any of the hard lines, the coloring lines, and then just take color from the very edge and push it into your blend. Again, trying to get rid of the hard line that would have been created. So we have that first layer of color on. So I'd like to get the brown just a little bit darker. So I'm going to pick up some of the walnut stain on my brush and apply over the brownie bits, so darker towards the edge, and work it off your brush towards the lighter area. Okay, let that dry a little bit. Again, we're going to apply the darker color right to the edge, and then whatever is left on the brush we can pull down into the blend. And they won't turn out exactly the same, they'll be kind of similar because you'll pull more color on the one than on the other. The aim here is not to get them identical. Remember, you are creating by hand. It's handmade. It won't necessarily be exactly the same. Right, so those are starting to take shape. They're looking very nice. So the one thing I would like to do is bring in a little bit of the crackling campfire, but like a smidgen. So I'm going to take some off my brush till there's almost nothing on the brush, and use that then to add some color between the dark and the light. And then I'm just going to bring that color down. See, I'm working in a circle so that there's just a little bit of the light left. And then just blend that so that the old paper, the crackling campfire, and the walnut stain, that the color, it be a nice gradual color. So I'm going to pick up and take off my of my brush, and then bring that in to work it in like that. Looks to me like we could just bring this down just a little bit more. There we go. Right, and then I feel like I could take some of the old paper and just go over the little tummy again. And just push that color back like that. There we go. That's starting to take shape. Right, and then we can go with the scorched timber. And we're going to paint the little legs or the claws like that. Right. And then we can use some of that then just to darken the edges just a little bit more. Hold it by the tail and then just apply some more of that color at the top here. And then just blend that color in till you are happy with the effect. There we go, and then obviously the little beak, we can make that orange. And there we go. That is your birds colored in. Again, like I say, they don't have to be perfect. I just like to make sure that I kind of blend in the hard lines. Yeah, and once it's dry, we could always go back in and add a little bit of extra color here and there. We can play around a little bit more. I think we might just do that. We'll see, but it's good to wait until they're dry before we decide the next step. Right, then with the flowers, we can quickly color those in. Okay, again, my flower broke, but that's fine. I'll still use the attach it separately. Okay, so we are going to give these ones yellow centers. So I just added my color directly to the paper. Just went round and round and round until the center was filled with mustard seed. And I had a nice round center. Like that. I then took my pencil. So I want the one, like the small one, I'd like that to be a bit darker than the bigger ones. So with this one, all I did was go around the edges with the pencil, and I only picked one side. I didn't go all the way around. I added a pencil only on one side of the petal. And we'll do it here. You can see there how that's been added like that, and we'll do the same here. And again, you can choose how much or how little pencil you actually apply. And then I went in and added a little bit of the yellow to the base of the petals. Not too much, just to be able to get a nice little contrast. Okay, make sure your brush is clean. I then picked up some water, and wherever I had applied the pencil, picked the ink up there and just dragged it across the flower. Again, to remember that this is just the first layer of color that we're adding. Right, so while we wait for those to dry so we can add another layer, we can then do the other ones. For these ones, I didn't want it as dark, so I very lightly added some of the crackling camphor to the edge of the petals. Just a little bit like that. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the pencil. If it catches the edge and a little bit more gets picked up, that's fine. But I really just wanted to add a little bit of ink. Okay, and then I took the yellow, and this I went over the crackling campfire. Wherever I see that it caught some ink, just scribbled over that. I just need a little bit more of it here and there. There we go. So once that was done, again with the brush, pick up some water, working from the outside, just pulling color in. And again, you just want to work those little lines that the coloring made. You just want to work those in so that they are smooth and that you can't see the pencil strokes. So with this, I'm just trying to get some color on the leaves. I know a lot of it's going to be covered up and only some of it will be showing, so I'm not too worried about the shading but I do want to make sure that there's no white sticking out. And again, I'll just give that an opportunity to dry, and if need be, add on some extra green wherever I think that may need to. Right, so that is for that card. Oh, still one more step. So then the little label where the sentiment's going to go on, I just took it like that, took my walnut stain, held it at an angle, went around the edges like that, took the old paper and colored in the center like that. Again, just trying to get some pencil onto the surface, and we're just going to wet it and then take it from there. So I'm going to work with the, where did I put it, the bigger brush. I'm just going to work that, move the old paper around, get that going, and then start to work into the darker color. You could just also just smoosh this in some ink if you wanted to, if you didn't want to do it this way. Just squish some ink out onto an acetate and then take your label and smoosh it into there if you wanted to. I just like the effect that this gives. A very unfinished, rough kind of effect. And again, once it's dry, we can go in and add another layer. I have purposely left things to air dry and not use the heat gun so that you can see that all of this is achievable without assisted heat. The only reason we often just use the heat gun is just to speed up the process, but it's I want to show you that it's not 100% necessary, and especially like when we're having load shedding, this is the perfect thing to be able to do during your load shedding, because, well, you don't need the heat gun. You can let it air dry. The pencils dry pretty quickly and will allow you to add the next layer quite easily. Right, so again, I'll just put this off to the side to dry, and before we assemble, we can always go in and add another layer. So there you go, though. That's everything for card number 1 ready to go.